Hey everybody, this is an overview of solo play for Coin and Crown. I do want to point out that this is just going to go over solo play. It doesn't get into every detail about gameplay. For that, I would recommend that you read the rule book first, or I do also have a video on how to play Coin and Crown for the multiplayer, which applies to gameplay for this as well. So for solo play, setup is essentially the same as a two-player game. You're going to have your three decks, your bronze deck, silver deck, and gold deck, and you're going to splay out three cards from each deck. For purple cards, we're going to be playing with the Imperial Mint, the Church, and the Overseas Market. I give quick reference card for you, and I'm sort of considered the left side to be the tableau that you, the player, will use. The right side and this quick reference card are related to the AI, which is known as the enemy. As far as the token, go ahead and put your token at the base of the Overseas Market. The enemy does not need one because the enemy will never use the Overseas Market in the game. Likewise, the enemy is never going to go to the Imperial Mint in the game, although you are free to use all the purple cards. The enemy may visit the Church during the game. You're going to set the year track at 1. You're going to set all the battle strength tokens off to the side, the 2s and the 1 value, as well as all the coins. We're going to give you, the player, the 5 bronze, 2 silver, and 1 gold. The AI gets a little different coin mix. The AI gets 4 bronze, 3 silver, and 1 gold. And those you can just dump right into your bag for the first year. This is called the enemy deck. And you're going to shuffle this up. This is only used for solo play. And you're going to place this. I'm left-handed, so I put it to the left of the market deck. You're welcome to switch it and put it to the right if that's easier for you, whatever's within easy reach. You're also going to separate all the land cards by type. There's hamlets, villages, towns, and cities. And then these are the upgrade, land upgrade cards. The start player token is going to start with you. Gameplay takes place over 5 years. You're going to have the start player token for years 1, 3, and 5. And the enemy is going to have the start player token for years 2 and 4. So you're going to alternate each year. As far as a couple of the components aren't being used, these master tokens, which are used in the multiplayer game, those are not used in solo play. Also, there are some additional purple tiles. These are not used in solo play either. And finally, before you shuffle up that gold market, you need to remove all of the blue building cards. The building cards are not used in solo play. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to start with some land. And you're going to start with 1 hamlet, as usual. The enemy is going to start with 2 lands. And the enemy can start with a village, town, or an enemy city. In the game, there are 4 special cards called enemy cities, and these are just used for solo play. If you go with the village, that is for easy play. The town is considered normal play, and if you want to try hard mode, then you would use an enemy city. So for purposes of setting it up, we'll use an enemy city, and basically what you do is you're just going to blindly grab one of those and place it down. So they're going to start with an enemy city. In addition, they're always going to start with a hamlet as well. You're always going to place the village, town, or enemy city here, and then to the right of that, you will place the hamlet. Whenever an enemy acquires new lands, which most of that's going to occur at the end of the game, but you're going to move those and place those to the right of existing lands. So I think that's pretty much it for setup. As far as gameplay goes, basically what's going to happen is you're going to take your turn as normal, and then you're going to take the enemy's turn. You're going to take a turn on behalf of the enemy, and that's going to be determined by the enemy deck. So I think for year 1, I'll just take you through year 1 to give you a sense of how gameplay works, and then we'll go ahead and pick it up again after I've played an entire game, and I can show how enemy scoring is resolved. It's important to note, though, that you're going to play the game as normal. You're going to be able to do conquering, acquiring cards, conquering lands, and upgrading lands. The enemy is only going to use the enemy deck to acquire cards. There are some special cards that do allow them to conquer through diplomacy, but essentially what you're going to do for the enemy is you're going to just build up 5 what are known as acquisition piles. So we always start with year 1 acquisition pile. And you'll notice there's already a card in the year 1 acquisition pile for the enemy. And that's because at the beginning of the game, the enemy is always going to start with a standard troop that retires after 2 attacks. So you'll pull that out of the bronze deck before you reveal these. So you reshuffle that and reveal that. Enemy always starts with that card. But any card that the enemy acquires in year 1 is going to go in this year 1 acquisition pile. And then during year 2, any cards that are acquired will go in the year 2 acquisition pile, 3, 4, and 5. At the end of the game, I'll explain how the enemy scores. One other thing to note, these battle strength tokens, normally in the game when you are acquiring battle strength tokens, you're going to immediately load those with these tokens to signify what their battle strength is. For the enemy, it's a little different. You're just going to put the cards, even military cards, just into their acquisition piles. During the game, you do not put these battle strength tokens onto the cards. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll draw 4 coins for you. And then we'll draw 4 coins for the enemy. Okay, and I get to start here, so I need a whole lot of lumber. Luckily, there's quite a bit of forests out. There's only 1 pasture, though, so what I might do, I might go ahead and purchase that pasture first and foremost. And what I like to do is I always put the coins that I've spent just to the right of my reference deck. This is my personal discard pile. You can make your personal discard pile wherever you want in your tableau, as long as you can keep track of it. This is my active income. This is the enemy's active income. So I purchased a pasture, end of my turn. Now it's on to the enemy's turn. And how you determine what the enemy is going to do is through this deck. The first thing you're always going to do at the beginning of the enemy's turn is you are going to burn this top card, and you're going to move it to the left of this deck, which is known as the burn pile. And you always burn this first card essentially to prevent you, the player, from knowing what coin or coins that the enemy wishes to spend. So you're going to always burn that top card, and then it's going to reveal a new card. Then you're going to look at the denomination that's listed on that card. In this case, it is 2 bronze. And you're going to compare that to what's in the enemy's active income. If there are coins that match that, then you're going to actually, like this, so there's 2 bronze there, there's 2 bronze there, you're going to actually flip that over and put it to the right of that deck in what is known as the play pile. And you're then going to take a look at it. And it's got a series of rows. And this is basically the priority list for what the enemy would like to do on its turn. So in this case, the very first thing it would like to do is purchase a pasture. But of course, I got the pasture before the enemy did. So it's going to move on to the next priority. And the next priority is it wants to purchase a standard troop that has 3 attacks. Now you'll notice there are some standard troops in the bronze level, but these are just the 2 attacks. And it wants to spend 2 coins to get a 3 attack. And that's not available. So it's going to then move to the next priority, which says to pay 2 bronze to draw. So it's going to do a blind draw. So it's going to spend those, it's going to blind draw, and it gets a pasture. And that's going to end up right there in the year 1 acquisition pile. Back to me, I still have some income. Now I do want that one of those forests. So I'm going to get a forest. Back to the enemy. I'm going to burn the card, and we've got two silver. We're going to flip that over. And it wants an elite troop that has 3 attacks. And there is one in the market. So it's going to go ahead and use the last of its money to purchase that. Back to me, I have a little bit of income. So I'm going to go ahead and get a troop as well. and I will go ahead and load that. Back to the enemy. The enemy has no income to spend. It does not conquer using these cards. It does not upgrade at this point in time, so the enemy is going to pass for the year. Back to me. I still have a turn to take. I can go ahead and exhaust these 2 cards in order to upgrade this, because my village requires sheep and lumber, and that is now a village. Enemy is passed. I have no other actions to take because I don't have enough military strength to conquer anything, so that concludes the year. At the conclusion of the year, of course, I'm going to move these back to the ready position. I'm going to populate all the cards that are still in the market with the bronze. If there were ever 2 in there and it would turn to 3, that would automatically change to a silver. And then we're going to repopulate this. And we're going to start player token is going to transfer over to the enemy, and then we're going to begin year 2. And year 2 is going to begin the exact same way. We're going to draw 4 coins from each bag, and we're going to just go through it again. We're going to do this for 5 years. At the conclusion of the 5th year, we're going to see where I'm at in terms of my scoring, and then I'm going to explain how the enemy scores to see if the enemy beats me. So I'm going to go ahead and pick it up at the end of year 5. Okay, so I just finished a game, and we just concluded year 5, and I ended up with 2 cities, village, and 2 towns, and I actually got to donate to the church, so I took the church. The enemy ended up not donating anything to the church. So my final tally is 7, 14, 16, 20, 24, 26 points. Before I get into scoring the enemy, I did want to point out one other thing with the cards. You'll notice there are some purple sections of the cards. So if, for example, you went through and there were none of these cards available and you got to the purple card, this tells you to reserve coin year 1 through 4. Basically what that is saying is it would like you to, in this case it's 1 silver, so it would want you to reserve that silver for next year. Any purple actions are a free action, so the enemy would then get to take another action immediately by referring to the deck again. Also, it should be noted that you're only allowed to have 1 coin on reserve per year. So if the enemy happens to have 1 coin already on reserve, let's say that in an earlier turn they had reserved this bronze and it called for that, even though it says year 1 through 4, if there's already a coin reserved, it would next go to the next priority, which in this case, year 5, it says donate to the church. So it would bypass that and it would donate to the church. And again, these are purple actions, so those are considered free actions, just as they are for you. So the enemy would reserve that or donate to the church, and then would take an immediate another turn. So I just wanted to explain that because I didn't cover it in the first part. So anyways, so let's get on to our final scoring. So my game is done. I've scored all I can. So actually what you can do is all of your cards that are in your tableau, those can just be removed and set aside. Likewise, all of your coins can be removed, set aside, all your retired cards and your reference card. So all that you have left is your score. The enemy, we can also set that off to the side for the quick reference in their coins. And now we have just these 5 acquisition piles to resolve. And basically how you do that is you're going to start with year 1. And you're going to look at these cards and you're going to break them into 2 groupings. There's military cards, and then there's basically everything else, which we're calling the resource pile. So in this case, we've got an elite troop, standard troop, and then a pastor. At this point, we now are going to populate these with the battle strength token. So this gets 3 elite tokens, and this one gets 2 standard tokens. The enemy is always going to use its military first before trying to upgrade. And is always going to use all of its military, its full military might, to try and conquer whatever it can. Even if it has to overspend. So for example, if I had 4 battle strength here, even though it only takes 3 to conquer a hamlet, it would expend all 4 of those and overspend in order to get that hamlet. As it is, the enemy has 3 total battle strength, and so it's going to spend those to acquire a hamlet. These both get exhausted, and then we look at and see if we can upgrade anything as a result of the cards that are in the resource area. The enemy city, definitely not. You need 5 resources in order to upgrade the enemy city to an empire. This hamlet, you only need 2 sheep, but there's only 1 sheep here. So with only 1 resource, can't do anything with that. So basically what you do with all of these cards is those are just going to transfer right over to the year 2 pile. And now that we're done, we're going to ready these, and now we're going to look at the enemy's year 2 pile. And you can see it's starting to get a little bit bigger and better. Standard troop with 2 attacks. We're going to populate that with 2 attack tokens, and a cavalry. Also picked up a field, a skilled builder, and an apprentice builder in year 2. So we're going to start here. Again, it's going to attack with everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the enemy gets to take a town because the defense strength is 7. With that, this one gets retired, this one gets retired. You can actually just set those off to the side. And these are exhausted. Now we have these to look at. Enemy city, still not enough to conquer the enemy city. Go on to the hamlet, requires 2 sheep. Does have 1 sheep, and actually has some builders, which builders are essentially like wilds. The enemy is always going to try to use its natural resources first. So if it had 2 sheep, it would have preferred to use 2 sheep. As it is, it only has 1 sheep, so it will instead turn to one of these builders. While both of these, because it's a hamlet, both of these workers would work. It's always going to use the lowest valued worker that is eligible. So in this case, the apprentice builder is the lowest eligible one because it can upgrade a hamlet to a village. Skill builder can too, but because this is lower and it's eligible to upgrade that, it's going to use that. So that's the sub-in for the other sheep, and those go to the year 3 pile, and this gets upgraded to a village. Now we still have these to work with. Can't do that. Cannot upgrade this to a town. Let's move on to this one. This requires a field and a forest. Now we've got a field, and now this skilled builder, because it's the only builder left, can sub in for the forest. And so that is going to allow that hamlet to be upgraded as well. That's going to also move there. Now we start with year 3. Ready these. Okay, picked up some armor, and now standard troop with 3 attacks. It's going to use that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is enough to conquer a village. And I'm just going to slide these over a bit. And these guys actually get retired. This guy still has some battle strength tokens, so these go away. Now we're going to look here. Still not enough to upgrade the enemy city. I also should point out, builders can't be used for the enemy city because only a master builder can upgrade a town to a city, but an enemy city is special. So a master builder can't even be used on an enemy city, only natural resources. So if you can't see what this has, it's 2 fields, a sheep, or 2 wheat, a sheep, and 2 lumber is what the enemy city requires to upgrade. Moving on to the village, that requires a sheep and 2 lumber. Has the sheep, could sub that in, but the apprentice builder cannot work on villages, so it doesn't have enough. Moving on to this one, likewise, not enough. Moving on to the town, would require a mine or some ore, can't do that. This one is now actually this one will work. Got a field, got a pasture, and can sub in our skilled builder for the forest. And that will become a town. We've been through all of our lands. These can't be used. Those go over there, on to year 4. So you can see how as the years go on, the enemy's tableau continues to get stronger. Okay, so this one got another standard troop there, and that's 2. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, which is enough for a hamlet. I'm just going to go ahead and start another row up here, even though it's going to go in this sort of hierarchy. These all get exhausted. Enemy city, still not enough. Would need 2 forests, only has 1 forest. This village could actually do that because we have a skilled builder to sub in for one of the forests, 1 forest and a pasture. So that will become a town. Not enough for a city here. Here, not enough for a town. This town requires a mine, a sheep, and 2 fields, which actually the enemy does have. 2 fields, sheep, and ore. Yep. So that can actually become a city. Only 1 left, can't do anything with that. Moving on to year 5. Okay, got another troop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is enough for another town. And since it's year 5, these can all basically just be swept away. They've all been exhausted, they've all been used, they're not going to be used again. Okay, now we move on. Enemy city. Actually, looks like the enemy does have enough. It requires 2 fields, 1 sheep, and 2 forests. So those can, again, since we're at the end of the game, year 5, these can just go off to the side. You don't need them anymore. But the enemy city is now an enemy empire, which is, unfortunately for me, worth 11 points. Town. Town to city would need a whole lot of lumber, doesn't have it. Here, more lumber, can't do it. This city is already upgraded. Here we would need pasture, nope, can't do it. This hamlet, yep, has 2 sheep. That's what's required, that's a village. We've already been through this and can't do it. This would now require 2 sheep, can't do it, and this would be a city, can't do it. So these are just essentially wasted resources. And now we tally up our final scores. I think, what was I at? 14, 16, 20, 24, 26. And the enemy is at 11, 15, 17, plus 11 is 28, 30, 34. So the enemy crushed me. But I was playing on a hard level, and the enemy was able to upgrade that city to an empire, which is really a pretty powerful upgrade. So anyways, hopefully that explains how solo play works. and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks a lot.